Hello, everyone. I'm Raga D'silva, your host for Older Queer Voices podcast. Today, we're exploring the history, identity, and legacy of Butch Femme dynamic within lesbian communities. Joining me today are Joelle Taylor, writer, poet, and cultural commentator, and her partner, Emily Witham, whose creativity and insight illuminate the lived experiences behind these identities. Our conversation will take us from personal journeys, how Joel and Emily discovered and embraced their butch and femme selves, to then have a deeper look at the historical and social significance of these roles in lesbian communities. We'll discuss the structures, protections, affirmations that butch femme relationships offered, how they have evolved over time, and what they continue to mean today in a world of increasingly fluid gender identities. Through stories, reflections, and even excerpts from Joel's work, including a book, Maryville, this episode celebrates the depth, authenticity, and enduring legacy of Butch Femme relationship. Welcome, Joelle Taylor, and welcome, Emily.
Hello, Raga. Hi.
Good to
So,
see you.
so wonderful to have you. I mean, we've taken a few weeks or months, I think, to get here, but
We
we
have.
finally finally got here. And just so that the listeners know, Emily and Joel are in wonderful Thailand today. And I'm still in London, and I'm hoping to get away soon as well. Okay, so for our listeners, I'm going to start with you, Joel. Just give us some kind of a background on your work, your world, before we knew Joel Taylor, and then we'll get on to Emily's understanding
Okay.
as well.
Okay. My background is white working class from the northwest of the UK, from Lancashire, during a time when Lancashire was a very long way away from London. So born in the mid 60s. And I came out at sort of about 12 years old, and then I went in again very quickly because in those days you didn't come out. The whole point was that you had to keep it a secret, being gay a secret. And so I've always written. I'm a writer, like you said, a poet, author. And that's one way I've tried to translate my experiences is through poetry or through story, the idea of narrative. So the whole of my work is dedicated to this sense of, I think it could be summed up to conditions of womanhood, if you like. Because as a butch, I always call myself a butch woman. I'm a butch lesbian. So the woman aspect is a very important part of it to me.
Excellent. We're going to talk more about it. I love the concept of womanhood and then, identifying as a butch woman. I just want to stay with you, Joel, on this, on coming out. And I just wanted to again set the scene and understand. You said you couldn't, it was a secret. You couldn't come out. How did that feel for you? And how does it feel now when people are so openly coming out all the time?
Oh, it's really irritating. No. Um, yeah, it's an important thing to note, Raga, because this is the cultural difference between the older and the younger generation. We fought really hard so that they can come out, so that they have all these varied experiences and can be proud about the whole thing. What it was like then, it was an incredibly homophobic time in the UK. You'd be watching TV programs. The whole idea of gay was perverted, very much like paedophilia, in the same kind of in that same kind of realm. And what I felt like was absolute shame and guilt. Shame and guilt, which is terrible things for young people to feel. You begin your life thinking the way you feel naturally is wrong. So that's what it felt like, and I think that's a really common experience of people my age, gay people.
Interesting. Interesting. And again, we'll touch upon that a bit later as well. Emily, we're going to come to you. And am I, is it okay for me to say that I can see that you're much younger?
I
And
am much younger. Yes, I am.
and
Yes,
I
I'm
know
30.
you're, yeah, so thank you for sharing that so honestly and openly. So there is these two generations there, basically, if I can say. And of course, I'm from the same generation as Joel. And what was your story? How does it fit in with the narrative today?
Very, very different. So I was born in the early 90s. So I came out at a completely different time. I came out, I suppose, gosh, around 2012, I think. I moved to London. I was born in Scotland, but grew up in the south coast of England. And I always knew inside that I was a lesbian, but I didn't have any kind of references to what that was or what that looked like. I kind of grew up quite rurally, but I knew there was lesbians in London, or so I'd heard. So I left home at 17, moved to the closest town, which was Bournemouth. And then a year after that, I finally flocked to London because I'd seen on the television that there was some lesbians there. And then I kind of immersed myself in gay culture in London very quickly. I studied a fashion degree. There was lots of gay men on my, unfortunately no lesbians. So I kind of went into gay male culture, kind of going into Soho and seeing that. And it took a little bit longer for me to find lesbians in London, but I'm an artist, and now a lot of my work, I create kind of work that looks at archives, as well as my own personal experiences, to look at kind of lesbian subcultures, the history of dyke communities. And that's what I've kind of built my career around now, is making art about my identity.
Brilliant. I mean, what a fantastic story. I'm just wondering, like, it just baffles me that even today, I mean, it's taken that long. You're just 31 years old, and even now you have to come to London to find lesbians, basically.
Well, yes, I grew up in quite a small village, and I didn't really know what a lesbian was, to be honest.
I'm still not sure.
It sounds like my story like 100 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
India.
even in the sort of early 2000s, there wasn't a representation on television. I mean, I saw a couple of little snippets of the L word, but they seemed so far away. You know, these kind of very slim, very wealthy women in LA just seemed so far removed from everything that I knew. But there wasn't a representation even sort of 15 years ago.
Wow,
That there
how
is.
fascinating. It's so fascinating. I mean, this is exactly how it is in India right now. Like we're still finding ourselves. And like, I mean, I share this story. When I was in India, I lived in Mumbai, and I heard the word lesbian for the first time in my early 20s. I went to the library there at the Bombay University, and I asked the librarian, do you know anything about this word lesbian? And do we have books on it? She was so angry with me. She said to me, go, does your mother know that you are talking about all these things here? Get out. Don't ever come back. And like, she was angry as if I'd been asking her to watch some porn with me, you know? It was that bad. But here again, I still see that sometimes in my South Asian community. Like, what? Lesbian? That's a bad word even now. So before we go on, Joel, I'm going to come back to you on this whole, when we talk about butch and femme. Let's understand what the word butch means.
Right. Well, I mean, the simplest explanation is it's a more masculine presenting lesbian. You know, act one with a female masculinity. It means different things to different people. Like up until I would say 5 years ago, I was very certain what a butch and what a femme are. But as you mentioned earlier, there's more fluid identities. So my my original definitions are changing. They're quite mutable, you know. But for me, a butch is a masculine presenting lesbian and who leans into that.
Yeah. So you know how people stereotype us, they box us and they'll label us and they will say, oh, so who's the man? And they assume the man. Wonderful.
In the book Maryville, so Canto and Other Poems is the story of these four butch friends, these four butch dykes, who are real women, by the way. This part two, Canto, if you like, is called Maryville. And in that one, I wanted to talk more about the femme experience, not just the butch one, you know. I think that's really important to note that, well, you can talk about this better than me, but, you know, femmes are as gender non-conforming as butches. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Emily, please give us your views. Yeah. What is a femme, first of all, for listeners? Let them understand that's butch version. And what is a femme? When we say femme, in our community. What does that even mean?
I think often it gets misinterpreted what femme means. I think people think it's a shortening of the word feminine, but I don't think it is. I think it's its own identity, also a counterpart to a butch, but in its own right, its own identity. And I think it's not just a shortening of the word. It's not an aesthetic. I think a lot of people confuse it. Of course, that's part of it. But I think it's a it came from working class lesbian identity. Butch femme were means of survival. And I think it's reductive just to say it's an aesthetic. I think it's got a long history of what butch is and what femme is. And yes, that's what I would consider it to be.
And it's not what the important thing in, say, in Maryville, we're trying to get across is that we are two women. That's the really important aspect of it, because in case people think we're having this heteronormative relationship. And many of the femme women I know are the ones fixing things and taking spiders out, and standing there with spanners, clubbing their fists, So I think it's really important to be aware of the fact that we play with these ideas, these roles.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because over the years, at least when I came out, when I didn't really come out, but when I was coming out and trying to discover my own identity, I was in New Zealand at that time, and we're going back 21 years ago. And I remember going into these chat rooms as well, and you had to say F or B.
Oh wow!
You gave your age, and I would say F 34. So that's how they described, and then they would decide whether you're feminine, how old you were, whether you were married, you're not married, and then they would decide whether they wanted to go ahead with chatting you or not. Then I would go to these spaces where it was very stereotypical. All the couples I saw was exactly a femme and a butch at that time. So one looked very feminine, and one, like you said, had masculine presentation. But I couldn't understand that. It's changed now. I see that evolving. Two women who, and I don't even know. At that time, I didn't even know, how do you really identify a butch person? I mean, if you go just by physical presence, physical identity, or is it something beyond that, Joelle? Is it only physical appearance that we say, oh, that's a butch woman, that's a femme woman?
I mean, there is that aspect to it, like Emily's talking about, there is that aesthetic. But I think that's us leaning into who we are. I dress as survival. I dress, as really. I mean, I don't know why I love what are traditionally known as men's clothes so much. I think it's because I'm not allowed to wear them. I think it's because there's rules around it. And I always found women's clothing really punitive. But anyway, beyond the body, it's something else. There is. And I have no idea what it is. It's a sensibility. And it's also, particularly with old school butch and femme rules, you have these kind of, it's a very dignified and respectful community, so all of that as well really appeals to me.
Okay, I like the use of the word womanhood that you used earlier, because I'm just thinking that as you walk into the room, people just make assumptions that, oh, you must be the man in the relationship, and Emily is the female in the relationship, and everything is assigned in people's heads by then. So you've already. And does it ever surprise people when you said Emily does the DIY things, for you?
I don't think any queer people are surprised at all. But I
think is a whole toolkit here.
There's a poem in Maryville where literally she has a Swiss Army knife on the end of her fingernails.
Yeah, so that's Emily showing us, for those who cannot watch the video and are listening to us, that's Emily showing us her power through her fingernails. Wow, a toolkit.
And I think for me, heightened femininity is strength as well. And I think to kind of a heterosexual man, maybe a butch is not enough woman and a femme is possibly too much woman. I think we're both quite unpalatable versions of womanhood to a straight man.
Okay, so how did you meet?
How did we meet?
and what attracted you to each other? I mean,
so we met at an arts festival. So I was exhibiting some artwork and Joelle was performing. So we met through our work, and we both do work about similar subject matter, about identity and lesbian. So that was our connection initially.
Okay.
Emily was doing this exhibition around responding to the Rebel Dykes film. Many of whom are friends of mine.
Have you
I've
seen this
known for
film,
years.
Raga?
I haven't. That's one of my list.
Watch
Just
it.
just
Watch
recently I
it.
added.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
It's
amazing.
In fact,
fantastic.
Nicola, my partner, just said to me the other day that we this is part of our list priority. We need to watch it.
Me
Is it?
too. It
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah. Go on. Go on. Please.
So, I mean, essentially, yeah, exactly as Emily said, we met through our work and became friends. In fact, I was commissioning Emily to make me a suit because she's, a menswear specialist. But yeah, I'm still waiting.
So that's my background. I studied fashion and
Okay.
menswear pathway. So that was how we initially met. I promised her a suit. It hasn't quite materialized yet, but she's still hoping.
Oh, I'll follow up on this soon.
Yeah.
So how long have you been together?
4 years,
4 years.
think.
And what do you think makes the relationship tick? And there's a reason for me to ask this very personal question because there's a structure, seems to be a structure in lesbian relationships. Is there a structure in your relationship that you have unconsciously learned, Joel, over the years, living the life that you've led? Or is it something that just evolved?
I mean, well, I think, I don't know. But I mean, I think what really is the main structure of this relationship, which I've never experienced before, is that we're both artists and we're both artists curious about similar things, asking similar questions, and I think that for me really is the foundation of our dynamism.
And we're the first people we go to with our ideas, with new ideas, testing things out, seeing what you think. And I love that. Again, it's having a creative relationship is really important to me.
Yeah, and previous relationships for me haven't been necessarily Butch and Femme either. More sort of dyke, if you like.
Tell us more about this word dyke.
Dyke is a word that I was very frightened of growing up. It was a very scary word. And then if you recall, sort of in the late 80s, early 90s, we reclaimed it. Judy Grant, the American poet and essayist, has got this brilliant theory about dyke coming from the word Boudica, who's the queen of the Iceni, who beat all the Romans for raping her daughters. So it's got this very strong word, dyke. But I was recently on the BBC and I described myself as a dyke, and literally they put out an apology on air. And it was like, they're fine to say queer.
Which is also a slur, which is very interesting.
That's interesting.
And they were happy to say that. Yet the word dyke, they're very, very scared of. Even though that's
Wow.
also being reclaimed by many people, they don't like to use that word.
Yeah, why are they scared of the word though?
Indeed.
Because it's a woman's word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird to them. Niche. Women are niche.
Gosh, I was going to ask you, one of the questions I had in mind was the word queer as well. I mean, Joel, you come from a time when queer was seen as a negative. We've received.
Yeah, very much, but just like, I mean, that wasn't a word that was ever used against me. It's a very gender specific word, aimed at gay men. But in the early 90s, same as dyke, we reclaimed it and it became this incredibly powerful word. So I started calling myself white working class queer. And it had this radical sort of edge to it. Now it's changed meaning again. It's just a big collective noun. So it's lost that radical. Dyke feels more radical to me now than queer does.
And more specific as well.
Yeah, because it's interesting because when we started the older queer voices, we received a lot of pushback. I mean, received a lot of love as well. The older people came to us and said, "Thank you. We need to reclaim this and let go of all the negative or toxic,
Yes.
nuances to the word." And then there was someone saying, "How dare you bring us a word called older queer, voices? Because I don't want to be known as a queer person. Do you not know what happened to us?" And questioning our understanding of the word. And I keep telling them, I want to reclaim everything that is negative.
That was used against us, yes.
That was used against us, yeah, exactly. And Emily, that brings me to you in terms of how do you see this present generation in terms of how we understand and accept our identities. It's quite different because our journey, my journey is over 20 years, was quite different to the younger person's journey now.
Yes, I agree. Because I suppose when I came out, queer, I mean, around kind of the early naughty, queer, around 2010, 2011, 2012, people were just starting to kind of reclaim the word queer, I think, especially in my circles anyway. I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, of course. And again, I felt a little bit uncomfortable using it at first. And then I wanted to use the word lesbian and then dyke. So I think it's kind of more and more specific of words that have been used against us, taking them back and reclaiming them. But in terms of coming out, and I think I was the first generation, I suppose I moved to London and I didn't have an iPhone. It took a couple of years until I got the internet on my phone. Whereas I suppose the generation below me is probably the generation where it's perhaps easier to come out because they've grown up with the internet in their hands, right? I think I'm the last generation that didn't kind of go to university with the internet in my hand. So I think seeing that is probably a lot easier. Representation online and finding out things a lot easier. I mean, that's got to change things, right?
Yeah. But within you, do you feel that you're more accepting of your own identity versus, what all we've been through, where it took, like, say, 20 years to even understand the word lesbian. Dyke was obviously not seen as a good word. Queer didn't even exist. So for me personally, that identity, the word you used, you said you called yourself blah blah blah, and then you used the word lesbian. Was it heavy for you to use the word lesbian, for instance?
I think at first, yes, but I
Yeah.
think I was also very lucky that I found a really supportive and welcoming lesbian community. I mean, like I said, it took a couple of years, but once I found these women, and I think my friendship groups are very intergenerational as well as my relationship. I've got friends of all ages, and I think hearing their stories and having their acceptance really helped me as well. Seeing these kind of really strong, older, powerful women that kind of, when I was 19, kind of took me under their arm and showed me, this is where we go out, this is where the lesbians are, read this book, watch this film. And I think that really helped me in coming out, seeing these successful women living open lives with wives and children and careers. And I think that was life-changing for me, seeing that. And that definitely helped in acceptance, yes.
Brilliant. So, Joel, do you see a lot of femme butch relationships? Because I know you're in those circles. I don't see them as much as I used to see them in the past. There is no. I mean, please let us know if you have a different opinion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, butch started to come back into vogue. It became a bit zeitgeist, and well, Rebel Dyke's film was kind of behind that kind of interest in that generation, but butches I started to see more of, and butch femme couples. Would you say I'm right?
Yeah, I think people are kind of doing butch femme again.
People will call, or at least they'll call themselves butch rather than lesbian. It's become a gender,
Okay.
So,
Okay. And what happens to those who are non-binary, but they are butch as well? So how do they look at their lives? I mean, I know that you don't identify, none of you identify as non-binary, but do you
It's
know
very
from
hard to speak
conversations?
on behalf.
Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah, yeah.
identify as non-binary, so I'm very careful not to speak
Sure,
on.
sure. Fair. So in a time when gender language basically is expanding and identities are increasingly fluid, where do you think butch and femme sit? Because I know you touched upon it, Joel, earlier, saying that now
yeah,
it's more gender fluid for you as well.
yeah. I mean, I think the meaning of butch femme has really changed. So at first, as Emily was pointing out, it comes from butch femme was a survival technique. It was literally a way to survive. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was this eroticization of that survival. So the meaning started to change. I think it feels to me quite heritage. If it's an identity, it feels like it's rooted in timelessness and heritage and ancestry. This sense of I don't know how to
Lineage.
lineage.
Yeah.
That's precisely it. This idea of butch femme lineage, and we've all learned from other couples. For me, when I was much younger, it was people like Peggy Shaw as the quintessential butch from New York, and Lois Weaver as the high femme. They're both in this They formed a company called Split Bridges. And there were femmes like Dorothy Allison writing incredible pieces of work from the white working class American perspective.
Joan Nessel.
Joan Nessel, of course.
So,
You
so
know.
are these conversations happening today? Because Emily, you do a lot of work in this space, and I know both of you do. But are these conversations happening, or are we just talking about other things? And the whole Butch Femme conversation, is that in our spaces?
Well, for me, I work a lot with archives. So that's why I always start. My starting point for my work is not only my own personal experience in my own community, but also looking at archives. So I go a lot down to Bishopsgate Institute, which has this incredible... Have you ever been there, Raga?
Yes, a few times.
Yes, I love it. And they've got this depository of kind of history, but also recent history. So things 80s, 90s. And then you're kind of looking through these archives and you're thinking, hang on a minute, I saw that woman in the club last week. She looks a bit different now. And then so it's recent history. Wow. Yeah. And then so I think that is the conversation, the Butch Femme conversation. I'm looking at Butch Femme in archives, but also there's the women in the archives are also still living in London a lot. So we're having these conversations a lot. I think referencing archives and now is a lot of what I do in my work.
Yeah, and I feel that there's a real appetite from the wider lesbian community to get sense of who we are. You know, we have this fracturing, which was maybe Section 28. Maybe it's just about the fact that women's voices, before we even get into different other divisions between women, you know, are erased. That we have these huge gaps. That's why we need.
And we're not, as queer people, we're not taught our own history, right? We don't inherit our history from our family. We've got to go out and search for it.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Searching for our history is talking with each other and talking about our experience, things like we're doing today, talking about our experiences and learning from each other. I think that's really important, especially in a digital age, to actually sit down with each other face to face, especially when there is fractures and divisions, to sit in a pub or wherever and talk to each other face to face and learn from each other and our stories.
Brilliant. Yeah. So Joelle, I'm going to come to you and ask you to read some excerpts from your, would love to listen to. I mean, especially those 4 Butch, examples you gave. Love to listen to it.
Great. Well, I'll just see what I've done with it.
And let us know how our listeners can get hold of a copy.
There are 2 books. The first one is called Canto and Othered Poems, and that's published by Saki Books. An imprint there's called the Westbourne Press. And this brand new one, it's just been released. It's called Maryville. And it's out on Bloomsbury right now. I'm about to tour the UK from April onward with the big live show. But I'm going to just read a little bit from the beginning. If you can imagine, the Maryville is this fictitious, magical kind of space. And it's set within a snow globe. So you get this idea of this very magical space that is haunted as well. And the 4 butches, these 4 actual women from Canto and Othered Poems, I've reimagined as teenagers in 1957, where they all meet at the Maryville bar and remain there for 50 years. So it's a kind of collection which is a narratively driven world building. Anyway, behind the bar are 1,000 other snow globes, inside which there are other bars, other meeting spaces for dykes and queers across the world. And at night, you can see inside them. So I'm just going to read some of them. These are a collection of sonnets. It'll only take a couple of minutes. 1. For boys, slow dancing in snow globes, moored in suits stitched from rainfall, who hold each other like eggs, from which they will hatch, punch curious, alert to the wild as snow falls like empires. Grass grows through the dance floor, and the boys are night butterflies. Everything cracks in the end, but not this hand, this idea. Some nights it snows spare change or saliva, handkerchiefs or charge sheets. Dust kings, tough kids, we had nothing, and we shared it. 2. We had nothing, and we shared it, a neat division of air, woke spinning on bar stools or crawling from hedgerows naked. We took These skins from shop windows, Savile Row, Paris, Bangkok, we were trying to remember why we died, or if there was a sound, if the birds forgot the words to their songs, or if the sky called our mothers. We were trying to remember if we were special. I keep saying good night, but I can't remember who to. But we are reborn in the bar beneath the city, each of us haunting the holes of our bodies. And I'll just leave it there.
Oh my God, incredible. And just the way the story, you can hear the story being told. Joel, where do you get your inspiration from?
Emily. No, I mean, but I think this it's a really good question. Where does anything creative come from? And I think it comes from curiosity, play, risk, and listening. Just trying to find. I'm at the moment, whilst we're out here, we're both working as well, so it's not entirely a restful trip, and I was trying to do some writing today, and it's at that stage where it's absolutely rubbish because I'm looking for an idea. So I have no idea. Anybody who tells you they know where their ideas come from have bad ideas. I think
Or they're liars.
Or they're literal liars.
Yeah.
It just arrives.
Yeah.
Something arrives. Or it doesn't. That's what makes it such a thrill ride. To see if I never know if I'm going to still be able to write. What about you?
Yeah, Emily?
Question.
In between artworks, are you?
Yes, at the moment, again, like Joelle said, whilst we're out here in Kotal, we're still working on things. And this morning I sat down and I was trying to design the logo for this year's Dyke March. I've done it for the last 2 years. And again, you sit with a blank piece of paper and you think, how do I start?
Yeah, and I hear you. I understand that. I just want to understand, when you're thinking of new ideas, whether you're inspired by something or whether it just comes to you.
It's cinematic for me. So I just I'm not one. I never listen to music or podcasts or anything when I'm walking around. I walk a lot because I have this cinema going in my head. It can be the smallest thing that really inspires, isn't it? Canto. I had the idea of setting everything in vitrines or inside a snow globe because 30 years earlier, my girlfriend's brother died of AIDS and was buried at the lighthouse. And he left me a snow globe. And as I was trying to write the book, it's just been there for 30 years, this angel in a snow globe. All the water's drained out. It no glitter anymore. It's just kind of, but suddenly it became this, it's interesting when you put a frame around anything as artists, it becomes really fascinating.
Yeah. No, no, this is actually very interesting to me as well. And I'm a writer myself, not to any degree the way you write. But I remember going to a literature festival once where there were really well-known writers from India. They were like really big writers. And one person asked me, he said to me, where does your inspiration come from? And I said, I don't know. I never think about it. I have to sit on a laptop and my fingers just flow. And he said to me, so do you get channeled? I don't know. I have no idea what is channeling. Like, is somebody like talking to me, my dad or my mom, like.
Yeah. There is an aspect to certainly writing for me that feels like it's not me doing it.
Interesting.
Without being spooky, but I think that's when you relax into the, when you have these great cinematic dreams as you're walking down the street. Maybe you are listening to music and it gives you the images. Who does that belong to?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? So it doesn't really feel like, you've put any work into it. It's just, it arrives. Yes. And it's really interesting. My work's been taken into archives and they're more interested in the first drafts of things. In other words, the absolute shit. You know, the things you never want to show anyone.
Yeah,
With you,
your
isn't it?
workings out and the notebooks. And actually, when I look to other artists, I find that more interesting sometimes, looking at their workings out and their notebooks, how they got to the grand idea rather than the grand idea that's in the gallery. What's really interesting is how they got there.
Yeah, but there's these massive evolutionary leaps. Like there'll be some absolutely atrocious metaphor that I've clearly stuck with for ages. And then the next one is what happened in between.
Yeah, but I love that. I love the fact that, because you have to start from somewhere, and
Yeah, you can write badly first.
that first thought that arrives, and whatever the 100th thought is, there is a journey, and each thought, as you go through the journey, I'm sure it is, it evolves within you also as you evolve with it. And I understand, Emily, your point, that you like to look at that part of the journey as well, the starting point. Where did those thoughts come from? Because I think that's fascinating to me as well. And although I throw all my stuff away, I don't like to keep anything that looks like really bad, because we are so hard on ourselves. We want to be perfect. And therefore, Emily, in your work that you do, how much is storytelling important? Because in Joelle's work, you can see the storytelling. What about your
Storytelling
work?
is everything for me. Absolutely everything in my work. I want to tell stories. That's. I kind of see my artworks as vessels for stories. And we were talking a lot about lineage earlier, and I kind of see my work as some sort of lineage. I've done work looking at the Black Widows lesbian motorcycle gang. I made these kind of big suspended leather waistcoats. I work a lot in leather. And I've done leather banners. And the starting point, like I said, is always archives. So it's this lineage, telling stories, often unheard stories, or very few heard stories of women before me, and then putting them into the artworks. And because I've taken these stories from the archives and then I exhibit them into galleries, but then in a kind of reciprocal way, I then put these works back into the archives. So the whole thing is about storytelling, and it's cyclical, and it's lineage, and yes, it's all storytelling.
Do you ever see yourself doing some kind of almost like a performance? Because Joel, yours is a performance. We watched you at the BFI and at the other Out and Wild festival in the past. It's a performance. It's an amazing performance. I don't even know how you do it for that long and do it flawlessly. I mean, we were all inspired. So do you ever expect, or do you plan to do something together, like a performance of storytelling?
Yeah. We're not going to do a performance together, but we have we're doing an exhibition.
Okay.
We're doing a 3-day festival where I'm doing an exhibition responding to the book Maryville. It's going to be an installation. Are we allowed to say where?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
It's going to be at the Deptford Triangle from, is it July?
It's, I think, 16th,
17th,
17th,
18th.
around those kind of dates. And so there's going to be kind of panels and talks, as well as an exhibition and an installation, all about Maryville.
That's
Brilliant.
period, and lesbian writers as well, just to pull it all together in a little 3-day festival.
Excellent. So should we do send us a caption with all information? We'll put it on our channels for sure. And I'm going to come back to this whole Butch Femme relationship. Where do you see this going in the future for our next generation? And I know you touched upon it by saying that more of the younger people are reclaiming it, but do you see it continuing, or as we evolve, as we get gender fluid more and more, the labels will go, there's no lesbian, there's no dyke, we're all queer?
I mean, possibly. Language is a slippery fish, as soon as you catch it, it disappears. That's one thing we both know, Raga, as writers, is that we can't control what's going to happen, and the queer has changed meaning at least 3 times in my life for just me. Do you know what I mean? From the slur to the radical word to the collective noun.
Yeah.
So with Butch Femme, I just don't know. But we are kind of, we're responding to a moment, and it's a cultural moment. And it's very rooted, like I keep saying, for me, about being a woman. Now, for other Butch Femme couples, other butches would describe themselves as part of the trans, under the trans umbrella. In fact, I think Butch is considered part of the trans wider identity now. So that's a very different, in my view, journey they're on. So I don't know.
I don't know either. It's hard to tell.
I do know actually that every generation fights, the pendulum swings back. So instead of it becoming more gender fluid, we know we're swinging more to the right at the moment. It may be the absolute opposite. And Butch Femme will be necessary identities again in order to protect women.
Sure, because I was speaking with someone else on another podcast, and they were a trans person, and they said to me, for years and years, I lived as a butch woman. I was very comfortable, but I suddenly saw the scene changing around me, and I felt that maybe I need to be a man, and that was their personal story, of course. And have you heard about anything like this? Do you think there is confusion or there is a different way of understanding this transness and butch?
I think there isn't enough conversation about lesbian sexuality and identity, full stop. So we're getting, of course, there are going to be people who are really trying to find themselves on this spectrum in some way. And I think the only thing we can do is be honest, clear, an open conversation. Tell me what it is. I don't know what it is to be trans. I don't think. I mean, how would I know?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but I do think that for me to transition into a male, number one, I would lose something I really love about myself, which is the fact that I don't look right. I don't fit, and that's something I'm very proud of. It's very natural. I haven't tried very hard to be a weirdo. It's just very natural. And I don't want to pass as a man. I don't like men. I really don't.
Can I clap to that? Yeah, we are part of the same club, and I keep thinking, why were men created? I'm sorry. Can I tell you, I was on a TV. Nicola and I were fighting for marriage equality in India because we're married here. Our marriage is not recognized in India. So as soon as we get on a flight to India, we are single again, and it's not good because you could have a medical issue that you need each other's support, and you don't have the right. So no legal rights. We're fighting, and I was on television debating Indian television debating this fight, and it kind of. It's in context to what you just said. And this person said to me that, oh, don't talk bull, whatever. I will not use the cuss word. And she said, it's very simple. Marriages are between two biological man and a biological woman, because they need to procreate. That's it. There's nothing else left in a marriage. And I think that's what people think that a man is for and a marriage is for. And I'm glad I do have children from my first marriage, but I am glad that I don't have to be in that space anymore, because I told her, I'm sorry, it'll shock you to know you don't need a man any longer to have a baby, to have a child. So these conversations keep happening. Lesbians, I mean, I've been told so many times I must be a really bad mom because my children must have at the least mental health issues because I'm a lesbian and they were raised by mother. So these things continue. And I wonder, before we close this, I wonder whether there are any stereotypical comments like this that you have to endure and live with, or then show them whatever finger you want to show them. Well, Emily, we'll start with you.
We've got the kind of triple head step, right? People turn around 3 times because first of all, they're like, oh, it's 2 women. Okay. Oh, okay, they're butch femme, and there's an age gap. We've got the triple kind of look side eye, right?
Yeah.
I would say that one of the saddest things for me is when people look at me and think I'm a man, and then look at the age gap again and think, that I'm a businessman and Emily's my sexy secretary, when in fact she's a very highly accomplished artist who's won the second Queer Britain Award, with our own sort of distinct.
There's a lot of stereotypes around age gap relationships as well, about power dynamics, and again with Butch Femme, a lot of kind of negative stereotypes around power imbalances, which just aren't true.
Yeah, that is really, really sad and tragic, really, and I hope that changes. I'm going to come back for the listeners and tell about an experience I had just yesterday. I traveled with Nicola. Nicola has partial eyesight now after her brain injury a few years ago, so she can't see She can only see 30%. So she needs to carry a stick, a symbol stick, so that people know that she has a disability. Now, I'm a person of color. I'm with her. People will turn around and say, yesterday somebody turned around and said, "Can your carer keep out of the way, please?" Yeah. So they
Oh,
just assume if it is,
Yeah.
if you're with a person of color with a white person, then so these are stereotypes people have in their head, and it's constant. So I'm always the helper, I'm always the carer, and which is
wow.
okay with me, but it is in
2026, people still think that
yeah,
it's
yeah. And there are many, I'm sure, examples that you will also be able to share, because this is the world we live in. And one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation, of course, apart from making sure we capture the essence of both, you and Joelle, Emily, because it's a very powerful, I mean, when we are in your presence, you can feel the power of the two of you. That's what I can tell you. Age was a thing that we needed to discuss, because two people of with a big age range can also just be absolutely united in their way they think, their creativity, and have a beautiful relationship. So I hope listeners and viewers can see that. And most importantly, I wanted to understand, how can you break those stereotypes? I want that to happen through older queer voices. Break the stereotype that age is not a problem, age is a privilege. Aging is a privilege. And if you're lucky to be here at this age, then do everything possible to make sure that you live a full life. Do you know why I said that?
look how hot she is.
Oh my God. I don't want to make comments. My wife will divorce me if I say how hot. Yeah, but it's been beautiful. Is there anything that you want to leave our viewers with? And Joel, very welcome to listen to another of your sonnets.
Yeah, I could do one last sonnet. Hang on. Okay, so let's go. And you might have noticed that the last line became the first line of the second sonnet. It's a form called the Crown of Sonnets, you lucky listeners. You can look at those. So inside each of the snow globes is it's really, each snow globe is, like I said, has a bar in it, but in this part of the book, in the world of the book, it becomes almost like obituaries for butch women murdered internationally. So here's one of them. This is number 7. It's where I lose my temper. A woman's body is a man's business, wet currency. His penis, a monument erected to himself. I understand now that language can eat us, that the mirror is carnivorous, that when we cut our hair, it doesn't stop bleeding, that when we are dressing, we mean as if over a wound. Please understand. We're trying to tame our own faces, so they come when they are cold. These small uprisings, these last stands, a knuckle of butches backed against gender. Some women's bodies are the site of their protest. Some women are buried in the graves between their legs. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing. And now, as we finish the last part of our conversation, it's been beautiful to have you both. Really beautiful. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners and viewers with? Emily, we start with you.
Say thank you for having us on. It's been really, really great, Raga, and to tell our stories. That's the main thing, isn't it? To tell lesbian stories, to tell Butch Femme stories, so that people have the representation.
Yeah, and come and find Maryville on the road. It's going in a big live show directed by Neil Bartlett with archive footage and visuals from Sweat Mother, and Emily will be there as well, curating the art exhibition aspect.
Yes,
come
come
join
down.
in, because at the launch, the most exciting thing is not necessarily me on the stage, it's all the lesbians who are
Brilliant.
out in the foyer.
It's a big party.
How do we find you? How do our listeners and viewers find you?
So via Instagram at J Taylor Trash.
And mine's Witham, Emily.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that we had this conversation today. You were both like so open. So thank you for sharing so openly. And I actually love that you have an age difference. It's really beautiful, really. And I feel that I can feel the love, like I said. The stories you shared are very powerful as well. I know that's a very small bit of what we talked today. I hope we have more conversations again in the future. We will encourage our listeners and viewers to please follow Joelle and Emily on Instagram and follow their journey. This is going to get better and better and better. I can guarantee that. Yeah. So, and good luck from Older Queer Voices, Nicola and I, and for sharing your stories, reflections, and your love with us today. Your
Thank you.
experiences remind us that identities like Butch and Femme are not just labels, they carry history, meaning, and deep human connection. So let's keep it going. And to our listeners, I hope this conversation inspires curiosity, understanding, and respect for the rich diversity of queer experiences, especially those of intergenerational voices and older voices whose stories are often overlooked. May we all carry forward the lessons of visibility, authenticity, and care in our communities and continue to celebrate the legacies that shape who we are today. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our partners, our outreach partners, without whom we wouldn't be here. Out and
Mm.
Wild, outspoken speakers, proud HR, ageism is never in style, my G work. And mostly, the biggest thank you goes to my wife, Nicola Fenton. It's been 20 years of a beautiful relationship together, and she is the curator, producer of Older Queer Voices. I do exactly what she tells me to do. And if you want to share feedback, please write to us at the viewsroom at gmail.com. And please share feedback, share this podcast with as many people as possible. And if you have someone you want to nominate, please write to us. Thank you again and see you soon.